Welcome to another episode of Jamming with Jason. Hey, today we're going to talk about the fact that I like you just the way you are. You know, if nobody has told you that today, I want you to hear it directly from me, the horse. I, I just like to say the horse's mouth. Anyway, but the fact is that I like you just the way you are. Now, I grew up listening to Mr. Rogers, and that's kind of the impetus for what we're going to be talking about today. And we're going to get into that more in this episode. So, whatever you do, take a listen to the whole episode and make sure and share with your friends and family. And with that, let's roll that episode. Hi, I'm Jason Mefford, and you're in the right place to start transforming your career and life with this podcast. I've been in the trenches as an executive leader, and now I'm an executive coach and confidential advisor to executives all over the world. I use a multidisciplinary approach to improve learning that drives transformation by getting to the root cause in a practical, no-nonsense way. I love learning and sharing what makes people tick. You get both education and entertainment, since learning shouldn't be boring, right? But that's enough about me. This podcast is a combination of intuitive leadership, neural influence, and mental mastery to take your career and life to levels you've never thought possible. If you're wanting to improve yourself, develop stronger relationships professionally and personally, make quicker, better decisions, and become a more effective leader, then of course, this podcast is for you because you are going to learn how to manage emotions in yourself and others, avoid burnout, stress, and anxiety, master your mind, get people to listen and take action, and become a lifelong learner. And when you do that, you will have a positive mental attitude, executive leadership presence, and the skills to know exactly what to say and do in any situation. I'm glad you're here. So, let's get started. All right. Well, hey, I am excited to be back here with you on the podcast today, again in another little solo episode, just you and me. Just you, me, and the fence post. My dad used to say that to me. I don't know why that just popped into my head. But anyway, that's a little dad-ism. I'll try to throw more of those in there because my dad is a great man. I love him and learned a lot, have a lot of little funny stories and things like that as well. But let's get into what I wanted to talk with you about today. And that is a lot of time, most of the time, we're pretty hard on ourselves, and we tell ourselves things that really aren't true. And I recently, last couple of weeks, or let me back up. All right, here we go. A couple of weeks ago, I just had this thought pop into my head, and I went over to LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on most of the other social platforms as well, but they have a new option or newer option called a newsletter. And so I thought, you know what, I'm gonna write an article and put out there as a newsletter on LinkedIn. It was something that I was thinking about. I grew up watching Mr. Rogers. That was probably my favorite show growing up. And one of the things that he always used to say is, I like you just the way you are. Okay, that's one of the things that I remember and that I was taught. And so I just wrote a random article on LinkedIn and put it out there. And much to my surprise, almost 3,000 people have signed up to start receiving that newsletter on LinkedIn. Almost 3,000 people in just a week or two. And so that got me thinking, you know what, this is obviously something that people want to hear a little bit more about. So let's do a whole podcast episode about it, because obviously that message is resonating with a lot of people. And I'm guessing that it probably is also going to resonate with you. You know, the fact that 3,000 people went, "Oops, sign me up. I want to hear more about that," means you're probably one of those people too. And so here we go. Let's talk a little bit more about that concept and what you can do. So what I'll do too is I made reference to the article on LinkedIn. So in the show notes, I'll put a link to that. But what I've also done is I know that a lot of people aren't on LinkedIn, right? In fact, I use it for business. I'm on there for that, but I use other social media platforms much more. And the one thing that we know about social media is you can't find stuff, right? It's like you see something come through in your feed and then you want to go back and look at it later and you can't find it, right? Because the platforms are putting all this other clickbait shit in your feed so that you'll click on that instead. So what I have done, one of the things that I did when we had to redo the website here last couple months is I've been putting up a lot of these articles, all the podcasts, other things like that I have. So that way you have one source where you can go and actually find it easier. So I've also put a link to that newsletter on my website. I'll put that also in the show notes as well. But that way you can go out there directly. You just always know you can go to jasonmefford.com and, you know, there's the navigation bars and all that kind of stuff, or you can put /posts and all of the individual things that I've written and links to most of the videos are going to be included as one of those posts. Now, the nice thing too is you can also search and filter on that page. So if there's a specific term, or you could go over there and type in Mr. Rogers and it's going to filter out all of the different things that I've talked about with him. Or there's also a kind of a filter where you can select the newsletters topic, and that's going to filter out just the things that I've tagged as being newsletters. Things like this, Being Uniquely You is what I'm actually calling the newsletter over on LinkedIn. So you'll probably hear me using that term a little bit more as well, because like I said, a lot of people have been resonating with this. And, you know, as you listen to this episode, you're going to understand probably why this is resonating with so many people. It resonates with me. And as I said, it's probably going to resonate with you as well. So let me explain a little bit about, you know, why I'm doing this. And actually, if you're watching the video of today's episode, you're going to see I'm wearing a red sweater. In fact, it's not just any old red sweater. It is a red sweater like Mr. Rogers used to wear. And so again, I'm a nerd about him. On my desk, you can see here I've got this little folding tent card sort of thing that has different quotes from him. And on this one, it actually has a picture of him wearing a sweater like this. So yes, folks, I am that big of a nerd that I found a place on the internet who has licensed with Mr. Rogers Trust or Foundation or whatever it is to make sweaters like he wore, and you can get them in the different colors as well. So today I'm wearing the red one. I have a blue one. I might order some other ones. Who knows, right? But here in this, little reminder on my desk, he's holding Daniel Lion, which I'll probably talk more about that in a future episode. Probably not today, but we're going to get in and talk a little bit more about that probably too. But on this, you know, the quote for the day that's up on my desk is, "You make each day a special day by just your being you." And so again, that really kind of goes along with what I want to talk about today, that I like you just the way you are. Okay, so let's get into this, because there's a couple things that I wanted to share with you today. So I already told you I grew up watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood on TV. I'm guessing that you probably did too. And there were a lot of reasons why I really liked that show. You know, both for him, the energy that he put off, the way that he was teaching us something, but also the way that I felt, right? And I'm sure that you probably, there's certain people that you know that when they talk, when you listen to them, you just feel safe. You feel loved, right? And that was part of what, Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers, told me, right? And he taught me to be curious about life, right? Because he would bring in, I love the little episodes or parts of the episodes where he would take us to places like a crayon factory or other different things like that, and actually show us, some things about life that as a little child we would never know. And I just found those fabulous, in, and curious, right? Which continues to live with me. But what's happened to me, I'm sure might have happened to you. I felt that love. I was curious. I was excited in all of these things that I was learning from Mr. Rogers as a child. But then I got to be an adult, right? And as an adult, we're taught to be logical, practical, responsible, right? And this, it reminds me of the song, the logical song from Supertramp, which is one of my favorite songs, right? Where they say, but then they sent me away to teach me how to be sensible, logical, responsible, practical. And they showed me a world where I could be so dependable, clinical, intellectual, cynical. And that's been my training, right? Is growing up, going to college, getting, postgraduate degrees. I was taught to be very responsible, very practical, very clinical, very dependable. But the problem is that also means that I was taught to be cynical and intellectual. And so a lot of the magic that we saw as children kind of goes away because we put it away, right? And we say, well, it was good for when I was a kid, but now I'm an adult and I can't do that anymore, right? And it reminds me of one of John Mellencamp's songs, where he said, pretty much to the point that, now that when I, grew up, I put away those childish things, but if I could be like that again, as I was as a child. And that really is kind of what part of this episode is about, is getting back to being more curious, being more authentic, to like we were as an innocent child. Because honestly, a lot of the bullshit that we do as adults hurts us, and it actually hurts us in much more ways than you would realize. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So why this infatuation with Mr. Rogers? Well, as I said, as a little kid, I always kind of felt that way. And it's because, again, of who he was. And, a few years ago, there was a documentary movie called Won't You Be My Neighbor that came out in 2018. And so I watched that, really interesting, brought up a lot of feelings again of that child listening to Mr. Rogers, but it also gave me a lot more of an appreciation for who he was as a man and what he was actually trying to do. And then in 2019, the movie A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood came out. And it's a kind of a documentary, but it's not, it's kind of a, it goes through his life in kind of a documentary kind of way, but it takes some literary license as well, right? And I've always loved Tom Hanks. I've always loved the movies that he's been in, and just think, he's one of those guys that a lot of times you see on lists like, the 10 most liked people in the world or something like that, right? Where he just seems to be a really genuine person. I love his acting style. I love the roles that he has played over the years. And so when I saw that he was playing Mr. Rogers, I thought, man, this is great, right? I love both of these guys. So I watched the movie again, a lot more appreciation, a lot more respect for who Fred Rogers was as a man and what he was trying to do. But, when that movie came out, what was interesting is I saw a news article that popped up, and I can't remember if it was on social media or where it was, but this news article said, hey, Tom Hanks and Fred Rogers are related. And I thought, oh, well, isn't that interesting? So I click on it and I go out and I watch it. And what's interesting is, was able to go back and kind of find one of them. I don't know if this is the one that I found to begin with, but I think it's on CNN, that I give on a link on the website. But part of the article said that ancestry.com, which is one of the DNA genealogy websites, figured out that Tom Hanks and Fred Rogers are sixth cousins, which I thought, well, that's kind of interesting, right? I mean, if you hang around long enough and you go back far enough, probably most of us are related in some way, right? Or at least a lot was. But here was the kicker for me. When it said their common ancestor was Johannes Meffert, their subsequent ancestors had the last name of Meffert. And in Mefford. And when I did that, I went, what the fuck? Hold it just a minute. Johannes Mefford, is that the same Johannes Mefford that I am related to? Because my mother did a lot of genealogy before, and Johannes Mefford actually came over from Germany in the 17th century. It was around 1750 something, pre-Revolutionary War, that he and his father Andreas Mefford came over from Germany. And so I went and I looked up, and sure enough, it's the same Johannes Mefford, which means I'm related to both of them. Now, big deal, no big deal, right? Doesn't really matter. I mean, it goes back far enough, but it made me stop and ponder, well, maybe that's one of the reasons too why I've had this affinity for both of these people, because literally you go back far enough in generations, we actually share some of the same blood, if you will, that's been passed down over the time. And what's interesting is, I still have that family name. Mefford is still my family name, right? So anyway, found that interesting, but again, big deal, right? Who cares? It doesn't make me special or different than anybody else just because of that. But as I kept thinking more about this and think about that, a lot of the messages that Mr. Rogers was trying to give us as children, and he wasn't just giving it to children, okay, he was giving it to other people as well. So I think it's very relevant still for us today, because a lot of times we're told things like, you just don't look right. You're not really what we're looking for. You're too fat. You're too skinny. You're too loud. You're too quiet. You're too whatever, right? And I'm sure you've heard things like this, right? Or somebody says, I just wish you were more like Sally, or I wish you were more like John, right? It's like, that's a kick in the nuts when somebody does that to you, right? It's like, well, what's wrong with me? Right? Or, I wish you'd grow up, or you're not professional enough, right? And you hear people say this all of the time. Now, why does this affect us? And why do we need to remember things like, you make each day a special day by just your being you? I like you just the way you are. Why is that so important for us? Because the rest of the world is trying to tell us that we're not good enough. Whatever you are, whatever however you act, you just don't fit the mold, kid, right? And I'm here to tell you, my friends, that's bullshit. That is bullshit, okay? You are perfect just the way you are. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't want to improve ourselves, okay? It doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to improve ourselves and become better, right? But what it means is, I don't have to pretend to be somebody else, because as I've coached people and I've trained and talked to people that I know both professionally and personally for many, many years now, right? Got a little white and gray in my beard going on here. Is so much of the pain and the depression and the fear and the anxiety and all of these negative feelings that we don't want to feel come back typically to that. We're pretending or trying to be someone who we are not. Okay. So how does that relate to us? What does that actually do to us? Well, if you've been listening to me for long enough, you know I'm a little different, okay? I don't fit the mold of a lot of people that are out there. I think things that are different than other people. I'm a myth buster in some ways, right? Society or most people will tell you one thing, but as I've thought about it in my life experience, that ain't true, right? You're being sold a line that really isn't true. But what it also does for us is it makes us feel worthless. It makes us hate ourselves because we wish we were somebody else. And, the reason I'm bringing this up is, now even more than ever, this is a huge deal. You look at social media, about the influencers, about all the people who want to be like these other celebrities. They dress like them. They do the same things that they do, right? Because they're trying to be the other person, or they're trying to be what society expects you to be. And what I will tell you is, if you go through your life trying to pretend and trying to become someone that someone else wants you to be, you're lying to yourself. And you know it, and you start hating on yourself because of that, right? I love people who are just authentic, unapologetically themselves. Now, let me give you some examples, maybe, right? Is there's certain people out there that just choose to be themselves regardless of what other people might say, right? I love finding out about, all of these, different things that people do that make them fascinating to me, right? Some of the hobbies that people have, some of the things that they choose to do. I mean, take things like Renaissance fairs. I love going to Renaissance fairs, okay? Because some of these people really get into this, and I love it. I love it, right? Because they're just being themselves. They like it. They found another group of people who like it, and it's okay to be you in those situations, right? And that's why it's so important for us to find groups or people that we can identify with. Not for what we, flashy kind of thing want to be, right? That goes back to that whole kind of imposter syndrome and the idea of trying to be somebody that you're not, okay? Idolizing some celebrity and trying to look like and talk like and be like them. Well, you might think that that's going to get other people to like you, but it's not, okay? People like you because of who you are. People love you. People who really love you for being who you are, right? But the problem is, so much of the time, we're told we have to be somebody else, but we don't. It's okay for us to be exactly the way we are. Now, some of those things that I told you before, right? That a lot of people say to us, you don't have the right look. You're just not what we're looking for, right? A lot of things like that are really code that people are telling you something somewhat nice to your face, that are actually pretty damaging. So, as an example, I've heard this in the corporate world, right? You're just not what we're looking for. Okay, now what does that mean to the person on the other side? Well, I've heard people say that to people because, you know what, you don't fit the tall white male executive look that we're looking for, or we want in our organization, right? You're a minority, you're gay, you're overweight, you are loud, you don't have the polish that we expect, right? That's what people will tell you, because honestly, a lot of people want you to conform. They want you to be logical, practical, cynical, do exactly what they want you to do, and only do what they want you to do. They want you to think a certain way. And that's why we get fed all of this stuff, especially on social media. You see this all over on social media. People trying to tell you who you should be and what you should do. Well, I'm here to tell you, just stop. 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 Please stop. Okay? Because trying to go down that path of, becoming who you think everyone else wants you to be will just lead to a bunch of unhappiness, to a lot of self-hate and other things that you don't need to go to, and I don't want you to go to. So again, I'm here to tell you, you know what? Let your freak flag fly. I don't care how much you weigh. I don't care what you look like. I don't care what your political bent is, right? Just be you. Be respectful, be kind, live your life, and allow others to live their lives too, right? If people want to go to Renaissance fairs, let them go to Renaissance fairs. If people have some, again, if you like underwater basket weaving or whatever it is, right? I mean, again, this is unscripted, so I'm just like trying to come up with stuff off the top of my head, right? But just do and be who you actually are, and have the courage to realize, you know what? One of the reasons why we don't do that is because we're afraid that other people won't like us. People don't like you already. Okay. So who cares? Just be you. Now, what I will tell you will happen, and this happens all the time. If you are being you, some people aren't going to like you. But you know what? If you're not being you, some people still don't like you. So why put up with the pain and the unhappiness and the fear and the everything else of trying to be somebody else when you know people aren't going to like you anyway? You might as well be happy, be who you are. People aren't going to like you anyway. But what it is going to do is the people who really love you, who really like you, they're going to love and like you that much more, because now they can see who you are authentically. Okay. So again, when I come on here, when I play the guitar and when I sing or I do some of this other stuff, some people out there think, gosh, that Jason guy, his voice sucks, right? He's not very good. Oh, did you notice he didn't play the right chord there, or he made a little mistake? Well, I don't care, right? Because again, the people who actually love and care about me, they don't care. I like to sing. I like to play the guitar. I like to get on here and talk to you, right? Now, some people don't like that. They think I'm being stupid. Oh, Jason, you forgot to shave today. Well, actually, I didn't, right? I'm looking nice on the video if you're watching the video, but there's always going to be somebody who isn't going to like what you're doing, who isn't going to agree with you. So you might as well do the things that you love and be the kind of person that you want to be. And, unfortunately, there's Mr. Rogers died a long time ago. And I think that, again, the messages that he brought out, we still need today, right? I mean, and we can go back, we can watch, prior episodes of him. We can see some of the quotes. There's people like me that might make reference to him, but we need to quit being adults. We need to learn how to play again and how to be kids. If you stop and think about, and this happens so much of the time, when was the last time you were really happy? Okay. Because there's a lot of adults that they have a lot of good memories as a child. Okay. If you had a healthy childhood, you're probably going to go back and you have a lot of memories of being happy as a child. But how many memories do you have of being happy as an adult? Right? A lot of the pressure and the other stuff that we deal with as being adults is sometimes we don't play. We don't have fun. We're not really happy because, everything goes on with this, and people are going to judge you regardless of what you do. So why not be authentic and genuine in who you are, instead of trying to be somebody else that comes with all the guilt and shame and stress of pretending to be somebody that you're not. Okay. So that's kind of my message today. And what I'm, again, here to tell you is, just be yourself. Everybody else is already taken. That's one of my favorite Oscar Wilde quotes. Let me tell you that again. Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. And what I'll tell you too is, what, if you're maybe a little afraid of being who you actually are, I understand that. I do understand that. I've held back and I haven't said certain things because I'm afraid too sometimes that people are going to judge me for what I say. Oh, Jason didn't say something that was politically correct, right? He used the wrong word. His grammar wasn't quite right. Okay. And I'll tell you, this is one of the stupidest things, right? I don't know how often people will tell me that there's a spelling error in something that I did. And I'm like, really? You listened to that hour-long training and all you could give me as feedback was you misspelled a word on that slide? I don't care. I don't care, right? But, again, as I said, I understand. Sometimes you're a little afraid to be who you really are because you think people aren't gonna like you. Well, that's why, again, I'm here to tell you, I like you just the way you are. I promise, I like you just the way you are. I might not agree with you on everything, but that doesn't matter. I'm still going to like you. I'm still going to love you as a human being, regardless of who you really are. And honestly, I would much rather disagree with you, but have you be authentic and have you be honest in who you are, because at least I know that you are happy. Okay. And that's what I really want for the whole world. That's one of the reasons why, again, on a lark, I just had that feeling and I sat down and wrote that and put that news article out there. And like I said, 3,000 people in 2 weeks can't be wrong. So I'm guessing that what we talked about today is also probably resonating with you. And as I think about a lot of the pain and the guilt and the shame that people feel, a lot of the imposter syndrome that people feel, like being a fraud and somebody's going to find you out, it just causes way too much pain that none of us really need to experience in this life. So you're going to hear me talking more about being authentic, about how to feel more confident, about how to be more mindful and emotionally intelligent, because these are things that really are the things in life that matter at the end of the day. Because I'm going to be brutally honest with you folks, we're all going to die. We are all going to die. There ain't no way out of this life but through death. So are you going to live a life trying to pretend to be somebody that you're not, full of a bunch of shoulda, woulda, couldas? So you come to the end of your life and you go, damn it, I wish I had done that. I wish I'd been a nicer person. I wish I had spent more time with my loved ones. I wish I had learned that other language. I wish I had traveled here, there, or the other place, right? Don't get to the end of your life and have a bunch of shoulda, woulda, couldas, right? Instead, be like one of the guys that I knew, Tom, who did some mentoring for me when I was earlier in my career. He was towards the end of his career. And so, of course, I wanted to learn, what I could do. And I remember asking him, because he was close to retirement. I said, Tom, are there any things you're looking forward to in retirement? And he said, Jason, I've lived a really good life. I've done pretty much everything I want to do in life. So whatever I have left is just gravy, extra gravy on the mashed potatoes, right? And that really taught me, again, that, and I don't do this well all the time, but again, I'm working on it just like all of you are, that the more we can actually live each day to the fullest. Don't wait to do those things. Don't wait to tell that person I love you. Don't wait, right? Don't hold a grudge for years. Forgive and forget and move on. And don't let those things continue to hold you in some of those negative emotions and negative energy in your life, because I don't want you to have regrets. I don't want to have regrets in my life. I don't want you to have regrets either. And that's again why I'm encouraging you, just be yourself and know that even if nobody else in the world, even if nobody else in the world likes you, you can know that I like you. And what I promise you, it ain't just me. There's other people that are going to love and like you deeper and stronger than those other people who may be in your life right now that you end up letting go of when you become who you are. But it'll be worth it at the end of the day. So just be you. Just be uniquely you. And with that, I'm going to wrap it up for this week, and I'll catch you on a future episode of Jamming with Jason. But again, know that I like you just the way you are, and have a great, great week. And that's a wrap. Thanks for listening to today's episode of Jamming with Jason. Keep on rocking in the audit world, and if you enjoyed this episode, please share with your friends and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Connect with me on LinkedIn and let me know what you enjoyed the most about the podcast, and you may even be featured on a future episode. When you're ready to turbocharge your leadership development, join the Briefing Leadership Program, where you get access to everything in one place and can interact directly with me in the group. If you'd like to earn continuing professional education for listening to today's episode, head on over to C-Risk Academy's video on-demand learning platform at ondemand.criskacademy.com. Not only do you get a CPE certificate, but you will also have access to hundreds of video on-demand learning opportunities. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are that of the individuals and not of their respective organizations.